Hello, friends and family. My name is Shannon Stott, and welcome to the Wisdom, Wellness, and Wealth Monthly Series brought to you by the Pieces Collective. Today, we are expressing joy. Yes, so much joy because we're talking about the joy of making and the art of beading. Before we get completely into everyone who is here and all the amazing artists that we have and all the discussion that we are going to dive into. I would love to know how you are doing. I would love to know where you are joining us from. You can stretch out your fingers and put it in the comments and just let us know how you're doing. Let me know. Tell me your name. Tell me a little bit about you. Tell me where you're joining us from today. What have you been doing all week? What are some other things that other wellness events that you've been to? I would love to know. And keep doing that. Keep sharing, because today we are having this wonderful discussion that you are a part of, and we want to make sure that your questions are answered and that your comments are seen. It can be a powerful thing to bring forth a creation from idea to reality. And that is exactly what the creators joining us today are doing. They are creating. We'll talk about creating as an art form and how creating can help us in life, the struggles and joys of the creative process, and how you can begin to turn your creations into a business. I want to, before we get into how to do all of that, I definitely want to bring in Ikrama Muhammad before we dive into this fruitful discussion. Ikrama is the executive director of the Pieces Collective. The Pieces Collective was founded in 2018, the goal of which was to contribute to human development through experiential learning, economics, and education. So, Ikrama, thank you so much for bringing us together.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank everybody for being here. Happy Black Business Month. I don't know if you all knew it was Black Business Month, but apparently August has been deemed Black Business Month, which I really just found out about. And I'm glad that we're acknowledging it, even though we know we do business 12 months out of the year. But building community requires business, and building a self-sustaining community, you have to have an economic system of which business is a part. Another part is the people who are committed to making sure that the community gets what it wants and what it needs by spending consciously and supporting those businesses. So a community without an economic system is forced to beg, protest, etc., to meet our needs. We talk a lot about business. We don't talk as much about our own personal economy, which is where all of the things that we need in our community can be met. So as we celebrate Black Business Month, I'd like for us to observe or acknowledge two of the Kwanzaa principles that I know we usually only talk about in December, but again, those principles are relevant year-round. And the first one is the third principle, which is Ujima, and that is collective work and responsibility. To build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, and to solve them together, which is really what the purpose of community is. Next is the fourth principle, which is Ujamaa, and that is cooperative economics. And that's to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. Again, this is what community is really all about. Similar to Ujima, both of these principles refer to uplifting our community economically. And we're really about that here at the Pieces Collective, because we have wonderful makers and business people who are generous enough to be on our site and allocate a portion of their profits to help us do community projects and community service, such as the one that you're here tonight attending, which is Wisdom, Wellness, and Wealth. We're great consumers, and that's good, but the problem with that is that we are not as good as producing the things that we consume. And by producing the things that we consume, then we're keeping that business and that economy flowing in our community so that we can meet our needs, whatever they may be, whether it's school, library, etc., art classes, art supplies, etc. Dr. Amos Wilson said that you cannot consume yourself into equality. You must produce yourself into equality. You move into equality and beyond by productive thinking. And so at the Pieces Collective, we're encouraging more of that. And tonight I'm very excited because we also support the handcrafted arts. And we think that is one thing that particularly women have gathered to do over the years that have helped us to survive. And I'm reading this book, The Healing Wisdom of Africa. And there's one part in it that I would like to share with you briefly. It says, when women get together to make pottery, they are acknowledging that their ability to create is part of nature's design, a part of their purpose. She will first gather the signs and images that she's seen in nature, and she will bring these signs into the circle of other women. In the interest of producing something that is an extension of their wholeness, the women will begin to sing and chant, echoing one another. The work is not in the form of a production line, even though a production line would have yielded more than enough of these practical containers. Nor do the women work alone. Each person has clay. They are seated in a circle, and they chant until they are in some sort of place, and it is from that place that they begin molding the clay. It is as if the knowledge of how to make pots is not in their brains, but in their collective energy. The product becomes an extension of the collective energy of the circle of women. And I think that our makers and all of us who hand make items go through that same process. A lot of times we work collectively, and that energy and the joy that comes out of working collectively goes into the product. So if we can unite and control our economics, we can control our future, and we can do the things that we need to do for ourselves, our community, and lay a foundation to build the future for our young people. Women all over the globe have been working to sustain themselves and contribute to their communities through handcrafts, particularly beading, for centuries. Beads have been used to barter and trade for religion and prayer, for adornment, and just, for the joy of getting together with community. And so tonight we're very fortunate to have three sisters with us who practice this art and have been generous enough to share their time with us to demonstrate and to talk about their love for the art, how they got into it, and just show you what joy it can bring. So I want to thank them, and I want to thank you, and I hope you enjoy and benefit. Peace.
Imagine a woman who believes it is right and good she is a woman who honors her experience and tells her stories, who refuses to carry the sins of others within her body and her life. Imagine a woman who trusts and respects herself, a woman who listens to her needs and desires, who meets them with tenderness and grace. Imagine a woman who acknowledges the past influence on the present, a woman who has walked through her past, who has healed into the present. Imagine a woman who authors her own life, a woman who exerts, initiates, and moves on her own behalf, who refuses to surrender except to her truest self and wisest voice. Imagine a woman who names her own gods, a woman who imagines the divine in her image and likeness, who designs a personal spirituality to inform her daily life. Imagine a woman in love with her own body, a woman who believes her body is just enough, just as it is, who celebrates its rhythms and cycles as an exquisite resource. Imagine a woman who honors the body of the goddess in her changing body, a woman who celebrates the accumulation of her years and her wisdom, who refuses to use her life energy disguising the changes in her body and life. Imagine a woman who values the women in her life, a woman who sits in circles of women, who is reminded of the truth about herself when she forgets. Imagine yourself as this woman.
We're very lucky to have that woman be you who is watching, and we're very lucky to have that woman who is us, who's joining. We have these women in our midst who are here to have this discussion. One of these fine women is Madonna Green Parker. Madonna has embraced artistic expression all her life. In 2004, she opened Marvelous Creations by Madonna, specializing in eclectic and fashionable, custom, one-of-a-kind, wearable art and artisan jewelry. In 2015, Madonna narrowed her focus even more, specializing in aluminum wire and paper design, and she collaborates with and sells to stores and museums, including the Smithsonian in 2020, and so much more. Please welcome Madonna Green Parker.
Hello, Shannon.
Hi, Madonna. It's so lovely to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Oh, good. So glad you're here. We have more people. We have more. We have Vivian Pollard. Vivian Pollard is the owner of ramonasjewelrybox.com and an entrepreneur at heart. Vivian left her corporate career as a vice president of media analysis for a crisis communications firm to pursue her dream of making and selling jewelry, which was the beginning of her business, the Beaders Workshop. In addition to her entrepreneurial activities, Vivian works for the Department of Treasury as a senior program analyst. She understands that being an entrepreneur has great rewards if you can navigate the peaks and valleys. She believes the keys to success are prayer, preparation, and being able to pivot. Thank you so much for being here, Vivian. We've got it. We've got it. We have you, I think. We are going to take you off of mute and everything is going to be great. Excellent. Hi, it's great to have you, Vivian.
Glad to be here. My pleasure.
All right. We also have Chantel Teal. Chantel Teal has always loved being creative and making unique things. Pursuing her passion, she went to fashion design school in Atlanta, Georgia, and later became an art teacher. Eventually, she started making accessories and created her own brand, Teal Face Artistry. Chantel is most known for the earrings she makes. Her jewelry is unique and is created with a desire to make women feel extra special. Her wearable art, her wearable art makes a statement to show off a woman's individual style. All of her one-of-a-kind adornments are created with good energy and love. Thank you so much for being here, Chantel.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate
it. You're welcome. It's good to have you. Okay, so we have you beautiful people here on screen. We have you beautiful people there in the chat. And this first question, just to start warming us up and getting conversation started, is for all of you beautiful people. So get your fingers warmed up, put this in the chat. And this question is, talk about the first thing that you made. Think back, way back, to the first thing that you made, even if it was as a child, as a young adult, that had some sort of impact on your life or someone else's life, but that you really remember. What was the first thing you made that had some sort of impact on yourself or someone else's life? Anyone from this? You know what? Yes, please. Good.
Go ahead, Chantel.
Oh, okay. The first thing I know that I made was a pair of pants with elastic in it. My grandma showed me how to make clothes for my dolls. So that's the one thing. And because I later on went to fashion design school, so I always like clothes, you know.
Mhm. That's awesome. Yeah, I did that. I would cut up underwear and just sew hoops. Like basically it's just one piece of fabric hooped together and that's all that's the furthest I got, friends. Sorry. That's the furthest I got. Vivian or Madonna.
Well, my thing growing up was playing dress up. And so I would just put on layers of my mom's pearls and necklaces and just get all dolled up. And I just like the effect of just being wrapped in beads. So that's
Yes.
really how it started for me.
Yes, yes, that's perfect.
It
Perfect.
is
What
awesome.
about you?
So the first thing that I made that impacted me, it's funny, was clothing related also.
Hmm.
It wasn't jewelry related. I remember in home ec, okay, we're going back a million years. I made this teal blue polished cotton pencil skirt, and
Really?
you can tell me anything. And I love that skirt. I kept it for years, but being learning how to sew and just expressing myself, I love fashion as well, was just awesome. And I kept that skirt for many years too.
Mhm. Mhm. I we already have questions in the chat and we're just gonna go with it. Where do you find your inspiration? And let's weave this. So you're talking about things from your past
Yeah.
as far as clothing, draping yourselves in pearls, just making things. And how did you find inspiration to take that to where you are right now? Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Okay. You want me
Yeah.
to start? I just want to say hi to my family and friends. Hello. And I actually found inspiration just by looking around what's around me
Yep.
and seeing how different people dress themselves. But a lot of my inspiration draws from different African cultures, like the
Mhm.
Maasai tribe. That's like something I've been like really drawn to. That's where I get my my beading aspirations from. And like I said, just art, anything that's around me, really. And
Mhm.
hey, sis, I see you.
Yeah, I think colors kind of give me energy. And so going into a bead shop, just seeing all the different beads, the different colors, and I just start playing with them until something kind of jives. And so when I was teaching classes, um, we would just have different shapes, different colors until something gelled.
Mhm.
So it's not something I rush, but just when you have the right set of things. So inspiration just comes from just kind of playing around with the beads and like I said, just I think colors, depending on what mood I'm in. Um, Maybe it's an outfit that I'm trying to match. Maybe it's an occasion. So it just kind of, depends on what the objective is.
Mhm. Yeah.
For me, my inspiration has actually evolved and changed over the years. I think originally, my inspiration, without even realizing it, came from my mother and my grandmother.
Mhm.
Um, I think as a culture, we are very creative people. Some of
Mhm.
that's out of necessity. A lot of it was out of necessity. And so there were so many things that I was taught as a child because to be a proper lady, you needed to know how to sew and you needed to know how to crochet and you had to know how to knit and you had to know how to cook. And so I was a child that gravitated towards those things. So I constantly watched everything that they did. I felt it was amazing. Like my mother would paint and crochet and do all of these things. And I thought it was great just watching it. I had no idea that it would evolve really into something else. It was a hobby.
Mhm.
Um, but they didn't see it as a way to make money. Now if I had to say inspiration, I kind of draw from what Chantel and Vivian said. Like life, it could be anything. I could be sad and I have to express myself. I have to find a way to release it. And what I found for me is oftentimes whether I'm happy, sad, you know what, the sunshine today, you know, it was raining. I pull inspiration from all of that. And ideas will start to flood. And then something in me, it's like a calling. I'll have to express it in some kind of way. So, but I appreciate what you ladies shared because Lord forbid I walk into a bead store. And I'm ending, wait a minute, ladies,
I
a
agree.
bead fest this weekend, and I'm going to do my best to stay in my booth because
Yeah, it's over.
you see my
Right.
face. It's a terrible time. My husband is sitting here because he knows I need a chaperone. Seriously.
I would love to go down this road of you said something, it feels like I'm being called, I'm being moved. And I know people who are, for lack of a better word, afraid of the calling, because it can show up in different ways, right? It can show up as a pull, it can show up as like being fidgety, it can show up in a lot of ways. How does it show up for each of you? What does that feel like? Because I would love for viewers to know, well, what am I feeling? And then how does it go from the feeling for you to an actual creation? Are you writing? Are you, Vivian was talking about like playing with the beads, sort of touching the beads, but how does it go from the calling to the actual making of the product?
Far as the calling, some like besides just taking in what's around me, it's like for me, it's like I'm always thinking. I'm always creating in my mind. And whenever I do the execution is when I do the execution, but it's like something that I can't stop. And it's just like I need to do this, I need to do this. But sometimes it's like if I start making something, I be like, oh, they gonna eat this, you know, like they gonna want this.
Yeah. Yeah. You can definitely like tell already from the thing that you've created. You know it's good.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't want to sell it. Sometimes I want to keep it for myself. I'm like, no.
Yeah, um, I wish there was just like a formula that I could give you, Shannon, but there really isn't. It's just and I can't say that I do something from beginning to end every time. So I start projects and I might leave them on the board, you know, and then come back to it later and have started another one and then come back to it and go a total different direction. So it's kind of done when it's done. And I'm not committed to it until it's finished. And then I might take it a loose and do something else. So there's not really a straightforward path for me.
Mm-hmm.
How about you guys?
It's not a straightforward path, I think, for me either. Um, the one thing that I can say now about myself that I'm okay and I'm okay with who I am. And so I used to fight it, the expression. I think I was afraid of it, to be honest with you. Now I realize that it's almost like breathing air. It's a part of me. So when I feel it and it kind of comes over me, like you were saying, Chantel, how you'll start to think and you create it in your head. And it's the same way. I can't say that I gain inspiration from so many different things. Like, to be honest with you, I know you guys probably gonna think I'm crazy. Your hair and your lighting, Chantel, around you, that, believe it or not, was inspirational for me. The shape of your earrings, like, and so what'll happen is when I see it, my mind will start to, I don't even know how, it'll formulate something. And then it'll start nagging at me until I create whatever it is. But like you, Vivian, especially if it's a bigger project,
Mhm.
it doesn't always go from A to B, right away. So sometimes it's just I'll visualize part of it and then I'll sit it down.
Mhm.
And then I'll come back to it. The one thing that I am doing now that I didn't used to do, because I had tons of unfinished projects, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, is now I make myself go back to it until I'm finished. Where before, honey, it's just hundreds of unfinished projects, and yeah.
I want I want to talk about that more because Madonna, you and Vivian both well, all three of you are talking about this sort of non-linear expression of the creation. And for those people out there who are let's say that they're feeling the pull, right? And they get to the spot where they're actually have made or are in the process of making a thing, but they can't finish it. And then they feel so bad about not finishing that they feel like they've failed already and they never go back. Can you talk a little bit about that
Mm.
process and what you would say to them?
Well, I would say I've done that plenty of times, and sometimes
Mm.
it may even take months before I get back to it. But I would say take the time to rest. Don't
Yeah.
if you're not feeling it right then and there, don't stop. Just cut it out. You'll come back to it eventually, and then something else may inspire you to perfect it, like make it better than the state you left it in. So I have lots of like pieces of earrings and stuff just laying around. I'm like, nah, I'll come back. Or I like, oh, I'm too tired to do this. I know when I get too tired, I'll start messing up.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's nothing wrong with leaving it. Just take your time, reset, come back to it. And there was a good question in the chat about how do you prepare your environment while making your jewelry, as far as music sense and how does it impact your creative process, which is a very good question. But I'm sorry,
Yes, ma'am.
Madonna, you went next. I just had to look down at the comment.
No, look, go ahead. This is good. I
Okay.
love this. Look, trust me, I won't forget. I'm
Okay.
appreciating
Well,
what you're
for
sharing.
me, far as with that question, a lot of times, sometimes I could just be in a quiet space, but a lot of times I love music. Anybody who knows me, they know I love music. I love hip hop. I mean, I love a lot of I don't like saying neo soul, but that kind of music. It could be some oldies like Temptations, you know what I'm saying? But I like to listen to music sometimes that influence me, and I like to have incense going, or sometimes I might do the incense with the candle, just having like that energy in the room. Or I might have to open a window, make sure I'm feeling like parts of the outside too, just so I can, tune in to what I'm doing. And it makes my creative process much better. And sometimes that helps clear my mind for as I could be going through something that helps with mending all of that and putting those um aspects to light.
That's a great answer. Um, for me personally, I pray and then I tend to, I'm thinking of things that I do consistently. I usually open the door. There's a stream near where we live, and it's something about hearing the water and hearing nature that I don't know. It just touches me in a way, and I appreciate it, and it helps with my creative juices. But getting back to your question, Shannon, I want to share with people who are on the chat that I think a lot of times, especially as women, um, we tend to shame ourselves a lot, and we measure ourselves too often from a deficit.
That's
We
true.
have to watch it because that will move into whether it's creativity, your job, your relationships. And I know personally, before I started healing in this area, I won't say I consciously looked for a reason to feel like a failure, but when you feel like a failure, then pretty much anything that you do, you feel like it never adds up. It doesn't measure up. And the thing that I learned was to stop condemning myself. I'm a person. We're all people. You know what? It's not the end of the world. If you start your project and maybe right now you're not feeling it, it's okay to stop. Like it's okay. I think that we put a lot of unnecessary pressure on ourselves, and we beat ourselves up too often when it's not even necessary. It really is not. And I'll say this about myself also. There are certain things that are patterns. And if we have a pattern of character, like one of my patterns was not completing things, then maybe the best thing to do instead of condemning yourself is, with help, whatever that means. I'm not saying counseling, I'm saying whatever it is. It could be getting in a quiet space, it could be praying, it could be a whole lot of things. Um, to get to the root of that, and then to start to heal from that. But there is no condemnation in creativity. So you have to kind of get rid of that, or it will start to affect every creative thing you strive to do.
Yeah.
So,
I like that, Madonna. When I really got into beading and had a store, I would have friends that were close to me that would say, "Oh, I always wanted to do that. Oh, I wish I could open a store. Oh, I wish whatever." And we tend to limit ourselves.
Mm.
And why don't we? I really love the way Ikwama started, and she started talking about how we are all creative forces and the synergy of these women coming together. So, if I had a message for the audience and for my friends, this is what I was telling them. Why not you? Why not? What speaks to you? Maybe it's not this or maybe it's something else, but I really think that we should sometimes be still enough and pay attention to those things that speak to us and draw us and go to it.
Right.
Try it. You don't have to do it on a grand level, but just start somewhere and do. We don't do enough me time and things that really pour back into us. And for me, bead really took off for me because it was very therapeutic. I needed some downtime because I tend to overanalyze and think through everything. So I was working out really my life, working out how I was feeling about things with these beads. So,
Mm.
maybe it was the texture, maybe it was the colors that got, plugged into my mood or whatever. But we are creative forces. And I just, I think we're our own therapists in a way because it really has got us. For me, it's got me through. Yeah, the music. I mean, you can come in my store and it was always some kind of jazz playing or something to set the environment. But I just would say jump in, pay attention to those things that are calling to you, and get in touch with your creative self.
Yeah. In that note, can you all talk about the community that you've built? Because you've each talked a little bit already. Madonna, you said something like, find help, find, if whatever it is, however it is, that whatever help means to you, whether it's therapy or prayer. But I'm wondering about when help means community. How have you all found community in this beading
yes.
work?
Okay. I will tell you, when I started beading, I found that it was such a solace for me. I felt at home. So I spent a lot of time in bead stores. And what I found is I started building relationships. You see regulars, and this was when we had a lot of bead stores in the Baltimore area, and they became family.
Mm.
When we would get together, because a lot of bead stores used to have like, um, I'm going to say community design nights, or you could take a class. When what I found is when women get in those spaces, all of a sudden you're not the doctor, the lawyer, you're not the accountant, you're not the company owner. You know what you are? You're Vivian, Chantel, and Madonna. And somewhere in there, it's healing. It's a safe place where you can not only be creative, but you can kind of exhale. That helped me tremendously. Now, kind of fast forward, that's very important to me. Um, with my customers, with people I come in contact with, yep, it's a business. But for me, it's not about the sale. If people know me in my business, it's about the relationship. I want
Yeah.
you to walk away different than the way you came. That's important to me. I want you to be encouraged, whether you buy something or not. You know what? We need to, something as simple as smiling genuinely from your heart at someone. You don't know when you meet that sister what they're going through and or what you're going through, and seeing how it could impact somebody's day, or saying something kind genuinely. You know what? There's always something kind you can say to someone, whether you know them or not. What I found though is it's healing because it healed me. It helped me so much in some of my darkest times just to be able to sit around people. We didn't always talk. I didn't always open up, and they didn't either. But to be able to find that common ground where I could exhale. I wasn't a mom at that time. I wasn't a this. I was just Madonna. And it
Hmm.
was so helpful. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I know for me, that was kind of a basis, and I built from there.
Well,
Um,
go ahead. Go ahead,
no,
Chantel.
I was going to ask what was the question again. I can't remember.
Good community. How have you found community
Oh,
in,
okay.
in your work?
Okay, Vivian, you can go, and then I'll
Well,
ask.
so so my shop was in Bowie, Maryland, and I had no idea that there were so many creative people there, and I don't even, and I was in my first store was in the back of a shopping center, and I don't know how they found me, but they did. And people from out of town. It was just like a place. It was just interesting. Beats he just creates his own community. The other thing I didn't know is that um, beads actually. How should I say this? I found out a lot about myself, with these beads because people would come in and the place was so calming. Um, I made a lot of friends and I was quiet. I was outside of myself enough to be there for other women. And I didn't really know that I really particularly liked people. I know that sounds funny because I was an analyst. I was in the computers. I really didn't spend a lot of time talking to people. But I really realized I love talking to people. I love meeting new people. I was like, oh my God, it was a whole side of myself that I didn't even know existed. And thank God, because there were women who needed to come in just like they would go get their hair done. You tell your hairdresser everything. They tell you everything, but they needed somebody to listen, not necessarily fix it for them, but they just needed a place where they could go, regenerate. Yeah, and I could go on and on about the women that came in and things that happened while they were there, and bridal parties that came in, and then that was a place where they could talk to each other, about whatever they were going through. There were women came in that had husbands that were, maybe going through a health crisis, and this was their place of, solace. It's just amazing um, what creativity brings, how it really does foster community from complete strangers.
Yes.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. um, I could say by Beading, I have met a lot of people, especially like she said, as far as like the customers. You end up like really having good conversations. And then it's like once you talk to that one person, then they bring somebody else. Then you're talking to both of them. The next thing you know, got the phone numbers. Like, girl, what you doing? Stuff like that. But I used to love going to Bedazzled on Charles Street. I'm so
Yeah.
mad they closed it. I used to love going in there and just I would be in there for hours just looking at stuff. Sometimes I wouldn't even buy nothing. I would just go in there and just look at everything. And that was part of an inspiration too when I would go inside. But it's like I don't know. And like when you go in there, it's like home. Like you have friends there, and
Hmm.
they can't wait to see you. One of them was like, "Where's your son?" I was like, "He's at home," But and just overall, it's great to have people around that are. I guess we all get stagnant in certain places in our life, but it's always great to have somebody else who is, I guess you could say, non-stagnant at that point in time, or who can understand the things you're going through, whether it is with jewelry, something personal, or any type of art. So that it's like an understanding, because sometimes when people don't understand your creative process and how you go through things, they're not going to really understand exactly why you're in that funk and why you can't do this or do that. They're like, why don't you just do it? You just gotta finish it. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. I mean, like for real. Like, wait a minute, I need to talk to somebody else that understands me. So, I mean, I guess you could say that's community building as well. And one of the reasons I started making earrings and everything is because my cousin, Noreen, she used to make jewelry herself, but she does like metal work. But I know the first pair of earrings I made, they were cool, but now that I'm thinking about it, they were hideous. I was like, ugh. I was like, this is ugly. I was like, and they was fading and just getting messy. I was like, but now
Chantel,
it's faded.
that's a perfect segue into this thing. So into my next question, which for everyone, and you can take off, you can start us off. What was when you started Beading, when you started your business? What was the vision then versus what is it now?
Wow.
Um, then it was just trying to learn something. Like, oh, maybe one day I can make some jewelry. Like blah 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 blah. And then when I realized that I actually have a talent for actually doing it and putting things together, and because most of my pieces are one of a kind, and I don't make too many of them, so it's like art, like right then and there. So it's just it's hard to explain, but it's all in here. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Just waiting to get out to give to you. You know.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. For the rest of you, what was your vision then versus now?
It was a hobby. And let's see, then I was one of those, I call myself like a professional hobbyist. I mean, if it was something to do that was creative, I was one of those people that I was like, I want to learn it. I don't know if other people can relate to this. When I look back, I've had so many hobbies. And then I'm that person also that once it's a hobby, I have to buy everything for the hobby. So, I
Yes.
crocheted, I sewed, and so there was a dear friend of mine who was in my ministry at the time, and she made jewelry, and she took me to wear Bedazzled. After I had to beg a lot. Please, please teach me. Oh my gosh, I want to know. It was a hobby. It was something that I just did to have fun, to express myself. I never thought that it would really evolve into much of anything because I did not see myself as a business person. And what I find interesting is looking back on myself, I always had what I call the hustle. We had a little something on the side. It didn't matter what it was, even I mean, legal. Let me put that out there, y'all. Legal hustle. Lord, but back in the day, when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, you were always a business person. Whether it was shoveling snow, we couldn't wait for the first drop so we could be the first kids out there to make some money. Or we used to make hammer pants, y'all. I'm dating myself for rappers back in the day, and I hand painted t-shirts. But once they would start to turn into businesses, I would pull back because I never saw myself as a business person. It was a hobby. Now it's evolved. As I continue to be creative and express that voice, what I found is I started to evolve. I just started to become a different person, and I started taking more risks. I started facing a lot of my fears. And one of the biggest fears was leaving corporate America because I
Yes.
too was an analyst. How about that? That's funny to hear you. I was an accounting analyst. So,
Mhm.
to have that stability and, and I come from a professional family, and to go to your mom, who was an IT professional, and say, I think I'm going to design for a living. Yeah, that didn't, that's a whole story. That's a whole segment in and of itself. Ma, I hope you're on here because I'm telling on you. But um eventually it evolved. One thing, to be honest, that made me consider making it a business was I had spent so much money, it clicked, on beads, that after a while I'm like, okay, how do you justify these thousands of dollars that
Yeah.
you have invested? Because it was an investment. But
Yeah.
I didn't see it that way. Over the years, what are you really doing with this?
Mhm.
And the more I thought about it, and then people would compliment and this, that, and the third, I would give them the jewelry. I don't know if y'all can relate to that at first. I was like, here you go. Everything I would wear, I'd be like, oh, you can have it, you can have it. Eventually, my friends challenged me. I had
Mm.
great friends, and they challenged me during a very challenging time in my life and in my family. And you know what they did? They bought me a plate. They bought me a table to vend at a conference. And
Okay.
I had prayed that if I was supposed to go into business, that I would have success at this conference, and that I would get advice that I needed and all of that. All of that happened. And literally, I made a decision to do it part time. And then it wasn't right away, it was like a 20-year period
Mm.
before I really made a decision to walk away from corporate America. But
That's a good story. That's a great story, and that's the crossroads that people who go into a deep. That's the crossroads that everybody comes to, because then
Mm.
you have to ask yourself: I made this investment. I
yeah,
have thousands. This my stash over here is worth thousands of dollars, hundreds, whatever it is. This is, do I need to get some money out of this at least to, so I can get more? So, should I sell some so I can get some, or should I sell some? And is this a business? And so that's a really important crossroad that most people come to. And
Mhm.
I would challenge, folks who are thinking about making it a business to really ask themselves that question. Are you a hobbyist? Or is this a business? And just because you're good at it and you make a lot of jewelry does not mean that you're a business person.
Mm.
So are you in it for because if you're in it for the jewelry and the artisan, it's going to be difficult for you to make very hard business decisions.
Mhm.
Because if you're in a business, you're in a business to make money, right?
Yes.
Right.
Vivian, okay. So you're transitioning us so perfectly. Let's see some of this work. Madonna, you're talking about, you went from one thing, being one type of person, to transitioning into this artist that you are. Let's show people, let's show a video of the things that you do and have done. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Okay. So, all right. This is Vivian, you're like, ooh, I love conversations where we're just transitioning perfectly. So, Vivian, you were already doing it. Keep talking about the transition from hobby to business as it pertains to your life. How did it go from hobby to business? And what are some things that people should really be looking out for as they're thinking about transitioning from hobby to business?
Yeah, so I went down that same road that Madonna went down. I've invested. I would go into a bead shop and I'm like, oh my God. I started whispering to the cashier, do people come in and buy this much? I mean, is this normal to spend this much at one time? I was like really kind of scared because I was just going, you see stuff and you want it. And and it was about building this stash. Well, at some point I was making jewelry, just making jewelry, making jewelry. And then at some point I started showing my friends and they would come over and they go, oh, I really love that. I want to buy that. And I go, oh no, you can't buy it. I'm just playing around. I had no intention of going into business. They wouldn't let me give it to them. And then some things I didn't want to give away because these were my babies. These were the first things I made. So I was like, no, I'm just playing here. And so then they started looking at me like, okay. So I got to a point where I had put so much into it. I said, well, let's just see if I have something. So on a Sunday afternoon, I invited some people over and I made about $2,000. And I said, okay, this is something. And so then I said, well, and so I went into business though, as opposed to being purely artisan. But a friend of mine asked me a crucial question. He said, if someone offered you what you thought was a lot of money to buy all of this, would you sell it? And I said, and I hesitated. And then I said, yeah, I would. He said, no, you wouldn't. And he was right because I didn't want to part with it. But his point was, you're not able to make a hard business decision. You're artisan. You're more because your heart is tied to your things. And so if you have to make the decision between a business decision and the art, you're going to choose the art. And that's therein lies the problem of being a real, decisive business person. Because being a business person, you have to make hard decisions. Those stones are really beautiful, but I'm never going to get my money out of them. Right. You gotta tell yourself that kind of stuff. Green is really in, and I already got 10 strands of green already. So it's really hard because you fall in love with the beads, right? Am I right about it, ladies?
Yes, very much so.
So the transition for me was I decided to go into business. And so I moved from teaching classes in my home to a store where everything depended on me. Washing the windows, washing the bathrooms, and it became real. So I went from hobbyist, having fun, therapeutic, to classes, to building a business, branding, advertising, website, finding people, exhibiting. It was everything. And it was at the height of the collapse of the economy. So when the housing market went down, people weren't spending money on things like this. So it took my money right down the drain with it. And we lost everything. Yep. So I am a cautionary tale. We lost our house. I lost my business. We lost everything. God is good. And I'm doing fine.
Amen.
But I learned a lot in that. So I'm putting it out there and being transparent because it looks real romantic from the outside.
That's right.
So really decide what you're going to do. And I so admire Madonna in being patient with herself and building it up so that when she took the leap, she didn't have to look back, So you have to figure out how much risk are you really willing to take on.
So I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I will say this, though. I left briefly Before the collapse of the economy, before 9/11, money was flowing different in our country. People would spend big money and not think twice about it.
Yeah.
I did gemstone jewelry. I'm going to say the average piece was between 300 and 600, and people were dropping it like it wasn't nobody's
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
like it was nothing. I was doing it, I said, as a business, but truthfully, it was a hobby that I made money from. Um, so in my mind, because I started calculating, I want to say going into the second year, when I looked, I made over $40,000 doing 10 hours a week, literally. And but people used to have these home shows, big home shows, and you could do a home show, for like what, 2, 3 hours,
Hmm.
and really make real money. And
Absolutely.
then the economy dropped out. That's what made me really look at all this money I had spent, because I would go to New York and buy a gemstone. It's bad when you walk into a store and they get excited when they see you coming in. Oh, and they start catering to you. That's a bad sign. So anyway,
Oh my
people
God.
weren't spending that kind of money anymore. So now what do? Do how do I rebrand myself? But I worked in corporate America and I was starting to hate my job. And so in my mind, I don't need y'all. I'm out. We all got laid off. The company got bought out. I
Mm,
said, I'm never going back to corporate America. I will say this to anybody that's interested in doing this full time. I'm going to tell you, you need a plan. You
Mm,
need to really think this through. I'm not trying to discourage anyone. I'm just saying I did not think it through. I didn't have a rainy day fund. I didn't have a plan. I thought, well, if I did it for 10 hours a week and made this kind of money, then when I do it for 40, I'm going to be a millionaire. And you know what? I didn't have a backup plan for when life happened. When
yeah.
I left corporate America, similar to Vivian, I actually got hit by a car the week after and ended up partially paralyzed.
Oh
So
my
I
oh
God.
think
my God.
now I was telling myself, because I was at that time, I did not like to deal with customers one on one. So I hired someone to do that for me, but I couldn't have walk. I was having all kinds of health issues. And shortly after that, I want to say within 5 months, I was actually looking at filing bankruptcy
Wow.
because I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was doing.
Wow.
Do I
Mm,
think that you need to know everything before you open a business? I do not. I think that don't be like me. The reason why it took me so long to leave again was because I was petrified, because in my mind, I failed. And I'm saying this to
Wow.
somebody, I don't know who it is. There is no failure in life. So let me just say that there's no failure, there are lessons.
Yeah.
If you quit, you failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. If you quit,
Yeah.
we've been, anytime that you're building a brand or you're pursuing a certain thing, you're going to have some deficits because
Yeah.
you're learning. That's
Yeah.
life. It's life.
mhm,
You have to get back up. And I will say this too, you need to allow yourself to explore something that's not always so comfortable. And that could be allowing new people that can mentor you and encourage you in some areas.
Mm,
Sometimes what's comfortable can't. Um, if you're around the people who are not entrepreneurial, or maybe they have some things that they're working through themselves, they may not be the most encouraging people for you.
mm,
True.
That's just being honest. They may not. You know what? That's, look at you. Just, I mean, shoot, I don't know why you thought you could do it anyway. You can do it. You may need some knowledge, some more knowledge, but it doesn't mean you fail.
right.
So I think that was the biggest thing, just kind of through this, is I don't know. I learned a lot, and I'm with you now, Vivian. I went from being like an artisan. I do love art. I love all expressions of art. I do. But I tell you what, if you walk up to me and you want to buy it, honey, it's gone. Just being honest with you. I'm like, you know what? I'll take a picture and hold it dear in my heart, but it's out of here.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to get there because I felt like many times that it was such an extension of myself that
Mhm.
parting with it was almost like losing a part of me.
Mhm.
So, but I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate your vulnerability because, and when you said, "Oh, I'm fine," I was like,
I'm good.
"You got this."
God is so good, and I want to be careful though that I'm not squashing anybody's dream. Because I believe that you sisters, I mean, if this is what you want to do it. So I'm giving you my cautionary tale so that there are risks involved, but you just got to
Right.
be smart about it. And there's
Mhm.
no rush to be, keep your day job as long as you can and just be smart about the way you go into business.
Mhm.
So where am I today, Shannon? I think you also asked, and then I want to hear Chantel's story. I am a hobbyist again. I need to, I just want to have fun, but there are a lot of women who started their businesses because they came in, took my classes, started exhibiting, and so I'm still here for them. And my nieces and nephews now are
Mhm.
starting to have. They're very entrepreneurial and they have businesses. But the Madonna is so true. We have to redefine what is failure. So,
Mhm.
and it's necessary to whatever that means. Fail. It's necessary to figure out what will work, what won't work. It's necessary. Anybody in history who has a big corporation today did not have success after success after success
That's
getting
right.
here. They had a lot of false starts, they had a lot of failures, they had a lot of businesses to win over before they struck it big. Look at McDonald's. I mean, you had to read those stories. That was the other thing I started reading about how businesses are made. It's par for the course. You just have to go through it. But at the end of the day, we are creatives, we are makers. And so we're being true to who we are. I enjoy the hobby. I'm finally glad that I can just relax and do my hobby again. And also inspire women to get out there and start their businesses or just sell their things enough to cover so they can buy some more beads or whatever it is.
Right. Right. Yeah, Chantel, we're looking at you.
Um, hmm, I don't know what the question was.
Oh, we are definitely still talking about what was the vision when you started? What's the vision now? Or rather, sorry, talk to us about the transition from hobby to business.
Okay, I got it now.
Mhm.
Um, it seemed like to a degree I always wanted to make money. So I mean, yeah, it started off as a slight hobby, but I was really on board with like perfecting it. Like, how can I make this better? How can I make this different? Even though like someone's buying a part of me, because it is hard to give up certain things. Like I'm like, it's like my baby. Like if
Mhm.
that's the case, I got a boatload of children. You know what I mean? And everybody that's buying is getting paying child support, I guess. but
Right, right.
but but like I said, I always wanted to make money from it. But the things I was struggling with, which I still have issues with, like far as like trying to get the advertising together so more
Mhm.
people will see it. But with some of my things, like most of the things I make and people buy them, is more of word of mouth. Like saying, "Oh, I bring this person with me because they like this," or "I heard you do this," and like, "Can I have it?" You know what I mean? Like someone bought some earrings off of me the other day. I was just in the mall asking her about do you have to have a LLC to be in the in the mall because White Marsh has the black vendors now. And I was just asking her a question. She was like, I like your earrings. I was like, thank you. She was like, how much? She said, do you sell them? I was like, yes, I have. I was like, I need to make some more. She said, no, I want yours. I was just like, I was like, okay. She was, because I was like, that's the only pair I have. But I didn't say that. I was just like, she said, can I buy them from you now? I was like, okay. She put them on the ears. I was like, yeah, thanks. But that thing, I'm not going to go into what happened after that, but I'm a future business for that one. So which was good, but I always wanted to make money from it. I always wanted to have my own. I never wanted to be like famous, but I wanted everybody to know like this is her stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, not to make it a long story, but I'm still trying to figure it out. Because at first I was like, maybe I'm like 47 now. I was like, should I just stop doing this since I don't have this or I don't have that? And I was just like, no, I'm going to keep going. So people say, why don't you have a website? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Yeah, your intentions are good for saying those things. It would be nice. But it's like, since my pieces are one of a kind, you don't want to go to a site and keep going. It's like sold out. You know what I mean? So it's just like I'm trying to figure out other ways and how to still advertise it, but not necessarily having a quote unquote website for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like someone mentioned to me, I think it was two young ladies that mentioned to me. I cannot think of their names right at the moment. They were saying something. What about if you do a live, like on Instagram, and sell the jewelry that way, or whatever item is. Like, this is like if you want a number 18 or whatever, just DM me for whatever. I'll get your information. Either I'll deliver it, mail it. So that way it'll work that way. And I think I'm definitely going to do that and see how that works out. But it's just a lot that goes into it. And I'm an overthinker. So it's just like, everything is just like, I just don't know. I just don't know.
That's good that you said that, because that's another point that you said, that you're making one-offs, right? Instead of cookie cutter. And so one of the things that women don't do is they don't plan. And so I really encourage people to have a business plan, even if it's just a paragraph, so that you don't forget, some decisions, some important decisions that you made. So you can't be everything to everybody, and everybody doesn't have your vision for your business, because they will have you selling all kind of stuff to all kind of people.
That's
and
right.
You might not have a vision for any of that. And, so people don't expect people to understand or see your vision, because it's your vision. But just be sure that you are not all over the place, and that you are writing what your vision is. And it's okay for your vision to change, but
That's right.
you'll be all over the planet if you don't write it down.
Right. And that's another thing as far as writing it down. I try my best, like I've always done it off and on, but now I'm being more proactive. It's like I actually have a notebook where I write notes.
Yeah.
And even if it's like a minor sketch or whatever, like, this is what I would like to do. This is what I need, making lists, and like, just so it's something for me to look at. But sometimes what I noticed when I was putting everything on Post-its and putting on a wall or something that I can see, because I'm more a visual learner, and that's the only way I remember things. It's like right there in front of my face. You can talk to me all day long. Sometimes I just be like, I don't remember questions, so I'm just like,
Well, this is perfect. You're talking about, we need to see it, Chantel. We need to see it. Chantel's a visual learner. Lots of us are visual learners. Let's visually learn what Chantel does. Let's watch this video.
Hi, I'm Chantel of Teal Face Artistry. I'm going to show you how I make a pair of earrings. There you see one of the earrings. I have it all mapped out on which beads I need and how many of each. Here are the beads that I have selected to use. Aren't they pretty? Nice and shiny. When I pick beads, there's no particular reason. It's just whatever I feel which I'm drawn to. And here I'm about to make a loop at the end of the memory wire that I have cut. Okay, see the loop? And I'm adding the beads to make my nice pair of earrings. And it may take a little while for you to bead them, but it's okay. As you can see, the beads are not falling off. Wow, look at that. The other one is made. Only thing I have to do now is add a jump ring, put it all together, and an ear hook. Bam, there we go. Aren't they beautiful?
They are beautiful. Yay, indeed. They are. They are.
Thank you.
Some little things that I would love everyone to just discuss, because I'm sure that there are people who are like, I just need some practical questions asked. So one of those practical questions are, how do you manage your time? And I'm thinking about life. There's life, and there's more life. And then there's work. There's this beading practice that you're doing. So how are you managing your time when it comes to balance?
She's okay. I'll go first. I'm going to be honest with you, we're all in. This is our full-time job, my husband and I now. And what I do is I approach it like I did in corporate America. I had to, I don't necessarily have to work 8 hours a day, but I try to structure my day, because if you don't, trust me, life happens, and it happens very quickly. You have children, if you're married, I have an ill parent, and I just found, and we travel for a living. And so I was all over the place. I had to kind of reel it back in and get back to the structure of a day. I treat it as a job. And when I stick to that, I don't have to worry about not having enough inventory. Or, I mean, the big thing with us is we do gem and jewelry shows. We sell beads for a living. Now, haha, for those bead junkies out there, that's what we do. We design like a waterproof paper bead that we sell at the gem and jewelry shows. But even with that, there's inventory. It has to be broken down. And so for me, the artist, I had to start reeling in some of the emotions, because art can be very ethereal and emotional. And but as a business, it's like, okay, what are your business practices? So for us, we work a certain amount of hours, at least we try to, several times a week, to make sure that we can meet our goals. So hopefully that answers your question, but
Yeah,
that's what we do. I sit down, I have a schedule.
that's helpful. That's what we're looking for, because people
Yeah.
want to know, like you said, it can be very ethereal. I sit out and I recharge my moonstones, and which is very important, but also having a schedule. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the best approach is, if this is a business for you, then you have to approach it as a business and respect it as a business. Especially if you're working from home, then you need to discipline yourself. When I started from home, first thing in the morning, I naturally put on makeup and get dressed. And that's exactly what I did. In the morning, I got dressed, put my makeup on, got my pocketbook, went down to my studio because it was a job. And I just wanted the discipline of treating it that way. Um, you got to be disciplined about it. And you also have to be balanced. So you can't live in your studio.
That's
There
true.
were nights when my husband was like calling me on my cell phone, "Are you coming to bed?" It'd be 3 or 4 in the morning, and I just couldn't let go. So you really got to find a balance.
I'm
So,
working on that. Thank you.
I guess for me, as far as fitting it in, I have a bad habit which I'm trying to get out of. Is like I don't necessarily wait to the last minute before I have an event, but it's like maybe the week of is knowing that I should actually do it like weeks in advance, so I have a whole bunch of stuff. But it's just like for some reason when it's pressure, it feels like that's when I'm at my best to a degree at times.
Yes.
But that's something that I might have to actually work on is actually I guess treating it as not say as a business, but actually getting up like you said at a certain time every day to like do that. But at the same time, I'm a art teacher, so that's where I am all day. Is like I really can't take my stuff to work,
Right.
and it's like when I get home, it's just only thing I want to do is lay down, and sometimes that is really hard because it's like I need some sleep.
Yeah.
I, and like if I'm in a bad mood or my sleep is off, a lot of times I can't really make anything. And that's a time a lot of times when I start messing up and I really don't like to waste supplies, especially like wire and stuff like that. I don't like messing up with that. And it's just like I'll just stop. But I need to be more, I guess you say, more evolved and more business minded, like actually getting into it like really like the way I'm supposed to. So I
It's
can have
helpful.
go ahead.
It's helpful, Chantel, to hear your perspective because the people who are watching now and then this video will live on for eternity. And people who are watching later, if they are having an experience where they can be disciplined, that's great. If they're having an experience where they're feeling bad about not being disciplined, it's going to be helpful to hear all of your
That's right.
perspectives,
Yeah.
as far as where you are in time and the things that you're struggling with. So that like if they're feeling like, oh man, well, there's no way I can be scheduled, maybe to hear a different perspective is going to inspire them to keep going. Just like all of you were saying at the very beginning, as far as not giving up, right? It's okay to stop, put something aside, and come back to it. We are slowly winding down our conversation, and I want to make sure that we see Vivian's work before we do wind down all the way. So let's go ahead and see what you do, Vivian. Yes. Wonderful. All three of you. Thank you so very much. as we wind down, these are the two things that I would like you to answer, or at least give to us. Tell us, one, what you've learned about yourself through this process, through this entire process of making and ups and downs, what you've learned about yourself, and then a piece of advice that you would give to the people watching about staying motivated. So what you've learned about yourself and a piece of advice that you would give to people watching about staying motivated. Anyone?
It's always this. It's me. It's me. I'm always messing up. But anyway, what I learned about myself is that I need to be, I guess, more patient with myself. Even though give my self the okay to make mistakes, and it doesn't have to be perfect, because I just have issues with that myself, with lots of things, not just with making jewelry, but that's pretty much what I learned. And for advice, I would just say, just stay steadfast in it, and watch who you're around. That all plays a part into it as well. Always have someone that you could talk to that's into the same thing that you're in, or someone who is an entrepreneur. There's different things that you can learn from them. Or like, I still need to learn certain techniques. I can watch YouTube or ask one of you. So don't be afraid to take criticism. Don't be afraid to learn more. You should learn more, because it's only going to make you better at what you're doing.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Okay. What did I learn about myself? I went blank. I knew what I learned about myself a few seconds ago, but unfortunately, Chantel, I struggle too with the same thing. Like, if you're talking, it's like, ooh, squirrel. So,
Me too.
you know what? This is the one thing that I think the biggest thing that I take away. I feel like I can do anything. I do. Not because I've accomplished and done everything well, but because I chose not to quit. Every time I've taken a step, I realized what it did was it opened some doors for healing for me. And I gained some confidence. I learned some things. And so I feel like if I learned, then you know what? I gleaned, I get to grow. I may have to do it differently the next time, but I just feel, and I'm not saying this to be cocky, I feel invincible. I feel like, and not that I'm going to succeed in everything I try to do. That's not what I'm saying. I just feel like all those shackles that I had on myself for 50 some years, I don't have them anymore. And another thing I learned about myself is I want other people to feel that way about themselves too. That's why, like, if you come into my space, into our sphere, I want you to walk away different. I want to love, I want you to feel good. People open up and they share, and I'm probably going to be that person to champion and challenge you. That is my personality. Everybody that knows me knows that. And I think I have to agree with Chantel too. I would say you have to know the difference between guarding your heart and basically having a good mentor. Everybody needs to learn. We were created to learn and then do something with what we're learning. And so I think it's very important to learn and not be ashamed or afraid of that. I think sometimes we're so afraid to be vulnerable. You know, level up. Find somebody or somebody that reveals themselves that knows so much more than you. And you know what? Even if you don't feel comfortable at this moment talking to that person, if you watch them long enough, you'll learn. So I personally just think that that's extremely important. It doesn't make you stupid. None of us come here knowing everything. We'll never know everything, but definitely be open to learning. And then I agree also with what Chantel was saying. as well, and just her advice as well. And look, and please love yourself. I'm serious. I'm like, I've been wanting to meet women to come in. You give a compliment, you know what we do? We say, "Oh my God." I say, "Oh, you really look beautiful. I love that outfit. This is so old. I don't know that your clothes old." You know what? Oh my God. Oh, you think I look nice? I'm so fat. I'm like, you know what? And I'm fat too, honey, and you still look nice. I like,
Yeah.
Exhale, allow yourself to learn. And
Mm.
so I'm gonna stop right there because I think DeChantel said the rest.
Yeah. You know what? That's a hard question. What do we learn about ourselves?
Mhm.
I learned so much about myself going through this journey. And y'all laugh when I said I didn't realize I liked people, but that was a true story. I really
Mhm.
didn't know how much I enjoy talking to people and learning about everybody has a story. And
Mhm.
stories is so interesting. And so I learned that I had a gift for gab, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that I could talk to people. Um, you know, because I'm genuinely interested. Um, I met the owner of Bedazzle. I called her, as a matter of fact, when I started my business. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to open this store. What can you tell?" I went to the three people who I admired and said, "I'm going to do this. I'm really afraid. Can you share with me your story?" And she said to me, "This is really strange, and I probably shouldn't do this, but I feel good about it, and I'm going to talk to you." And she did. And she gave me some very great advice. And so I share that because we all need help. And we
Mhm.
all, we're not in this by ourselves, although we think we can do that. I got this. I don't need nobody. I'm going to figure this out. Why, sis, why are you trying to figure it out by yourself? You got a wealth, you got a village around you, the
Right.
people who would love to help you. We all need some help. And there's no reason why you have to make the same mistakes that we made,
That's right.
right? So I learned that about myself, but I am getting older. What was the second part, Shannon?
And then, as far advice for keeping, now see, I've forgotten my own.
Okay, well, advice.
Motivated.
Motivated.
Yeah, keeping motivated.
Write your vision, write your goals down,
Mhm.
and make sure that you're reaching your goals. Don't make them so high you're gonna, at the end of the year or whatever incremental time you select, make sure you're reaching your goals. One thing we didn't talk about that I want you to think about is don't undervalue yourself. Figure out what your time is worth. Figure out what your product is worth, and that's a question you're going to have to face at some point. How are you going to price your product? So be smart about pricing your product. Look at how much it costs you. Look at what the market will also bear, and then figure out what your markup is going to be. And don't make it some ridiculous amount, because just because you can charge it, because you want people to come back to you, right? So be reasonable about it, but be fair to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, friends, you did it. You did it. You had a whole conversation. It was impactful, right? This is why people are coming. This is why people will continue to come and to listen to you speak. So thank you so much. For those of you who are in the chat, I hope that this discussion has helped you open your mind to what is possible in the world of making and inspired you to bring your own creations into the world.
We're still here.
Now it's time for all good men to get together with one another. We got to iron out our problems and iron out our quarrels and try to live as brothers. And try to find peace within without stepping on one another. And do respect the women of the world. Remember, you all had mothers. We gotta make this land a better land in the world in which gosh almighty. Yes, we can, I know we can.